So hi, good morning. All good? Fine. So what was the last topic? Military causes of the revolt. So it means that we just started and we have completed military causes of the revolt. So then there are many political, economic, sociologists, and then after we need to talk about the other stuff, for example, course of the revolt, and then prominent leaders, and then the final analysis. So in military causes, already we have discussed that rifle episode, and then after enlistment order, post office act, bhatta issue, and then racial discrimination which is there. So these all parts we have already mentioned. Now let's start with the economic causes of the revolt. So give me a minute. Wait. So was there a disruption in your class also last day? By what time? In the morning. No disruption. Okay. There was after 11 o'clock. Okay. So did class continue after that? Chalo, it's good. So now we'll start with. So listen. So economic causes of the revolt, and there are a few things which we already know and which we have already discussed. That one of the economic cause, it must be land revenue settlements. Okay? So all the land revenue settlements, though all the land revenue settlements, when we look at it, permanent, Rayatwadi and Mahalwari. So though there were change in the provisions, and then moreover some seem to be better, some seem to be not so better, but at the end of the day all of them were highly exploitative. So no matter that what was the difference in their provisions, but at the end of the day on the peasants the effect was same. When that all of them were highly exploitative, and all of them were leading to very high tax burden on the ultimate taxpayer. And who is the ultimate taxpayer? Peasants then. So this particular burden is further leading to that they are taking loans from the money lenders, and then they are getting trapped in the vicious cycle of the debt. So all of them were producing same sort of effect, and that we already have mentioned. So this was one of the reasons that people were fed up with the British rule and the way they were excruciating the Indian peasantry with the high taxes. That was one thing. Moreover, many a times these suffocations associated with the high tax payment, it has led to the small civil and tribal uprisings also. So now it was an opportunity in 1857 that when a big revolt has started as a mutiny in the army, so people have joined in the large numbers. Right? So exploitative land revenue settlements were the one such reason. Then another thing which was, we are discussing it from the beginning, is the one-way free trade for the Britishers. Then, so for the British company employees and British company related people, it was one-way free trade in many areas. They were selling their goods without any taxes. But what about the Indian traders? They had to pay all the taxes. And if an Indian product has to enter European market, so then they will also have to pay high taxes then. In fact, when your economics classes will start, so you will understand many such variety of the taxes, like for example, dumping taxes, anti-dumping taxes, ad valorem taxes. So many such taxes were imposed on the Indian products when they are entering into the European market. So Indian products on one hand are uncompetitive, though they are on the basis of their excellence or their craftsmanship, they were good, but at the same point of time, same machine made things were there from the Britain, and they were cheaper and they did not attracted any taxes. So this is also one such reason. Then another reason is confiscation of the rent-free states. This is something which we have not discussed earlier. So confiscation of the rent-free states. What is rent-free states? You need to understand that there were many people in the society, there were many people belonging to the religious class, Maulvis, Ulaimas, and they were providing the religious services. So the rulers of that time, they have given them rent-free lands. Okay? Those are called as rent-free estates. Why so? Because it is a bigger land. Oh, maybe 50 acres, 60 acres, this much land. So these rent-free states, meaning that they are not going to pay any taxes on it. And whatever that is there, all the benefits are enjoyed by them, the religious class, and they can invest or they can put that money into the themes or aspects associated with the religion. So in 1850s, there was one commission which was created by the government. Name of the commission was Inam Commission. Okay? It's not a name of a person, it is name of commission, Inam Commission. And what is Inam? Land Grant Commission. Okay? So in between 1852 to 57, okay, in the beginning, or we can say roughly, we can say 1852 to 56, 21,000 cases of the rent-free states were brought before this commission. And these 21,000, so it was supposed to check the lease deeds or title deeds of these particular rent-free states. Now, the word I'm using, the title deeds, let me write this word on board. I just want to know that how many of you have already heard about it, that what is title deeds? Any idea? Or lease deed? Have you heard this term? It's a term associated with the property. That title deeds, just say if you ask your parents, so they will be knowing it. Title deeds. So for example, that if your grandfather is alive, okay, and your father is there, so the land title deed would be in the name of your grandfather. Okay? When he is dying, so it's going to your father. So title deed is all about that very clear pattern of the inheritance of the things, then, and then to whom the land belongs. So this title deeds, to check this title deeds, this commission was created, and then this commission, it pronounced the judgment, and that judgment was confiscation of all the 21,000 rent-free states. Confiscation of all of them, not even a single one was spared. So this is obviously 21,000 cases, meaning 21,000 people will be affected and 21,000 families will be affected. So religious class people also participated in large numbers because they are the one who were mostly affected by it. So these are the ones which we put under the economic causes of the revolt. And then we'll go into the other aspects. So mention a little bit economic causes of the revolt. So major title, economic causes, and in this very first point you write exploitative land revenue systems. Exploitative land revenue systems. So in this you mention. So mention under all the land revenue settlements, tax burden was very high on peasants. Tax burden was very high on peasants. Full stop. Even in case of crop failure, they were forced to make the payment. Even in the case of crop failure, they were forced to make the payment. Done? To make the payment, full stop. Very often they had to take loan on very high interest rate. They had to take loan on very high interest rate from moneylenders. Which often led to peasants getting trapped in the vicious cycle of debt. Peasants getting trapped in the vicious cycle of debt. Then it often led to many it often led to many civil and tribal uprisings, civil and tribal uprising against British authority, civil and tribal uprising against British authority. Full stop. When the mutiny started, peasants joined it in large numbers. When the mutiny started, peasants joined it in large numbers. Then, so this is what is about the exploitative land revenue systems. Then the second you write, number 2 you write despoliation of Indian trade. So mention in this one, despoliation of Indian trade. From the very first decade of 18th century, company employees enjoyed many privileges. Company employees enjoyed many privileges. Full stop. The one-way free trade for British East India Company put the Indian traders under immense pressure. On the craftsmanship level, Indian goods were still competent. But not in the matter of the price. Comma, since they had to pay many taxes. Full stop. It made their products costly, and they were forced out of the market. It made their products costly and they were forced out of the market. Okay. So this is the second part. Then third you write, third in the economic causes. Number 3, confiscation of rent-free states. Mention. In 1850s, government constituted Inam Commission. To check the title deeds of rent-free states. Then in between 1852 to 56, in between 1852 to 56, near about 21,000 cases of rent-free states, 21,000 cases of rent-free states were brought before the commission. Full stop. Commission passed its judgment that all the 21,000 rent-free states must be confiscated. All the 21,000 rent-free states must be confiscated. Then mention after it must be confiscated, full stop. The people who were mostly disaffected with this judgment were belonging to religious class like Maulvis and ulemas. Then, so Maulvis and ulemas. So this is what is about the economic reasons. Okay? So economic reasons, and now so let's move to the next one, that is socio-religious causes of the revolt. So mention a title, socio-religious causes of revolt. So when it comes to socio-religious causes, the very first thing we mentioned as an immediate cause of the revolt, a rifle episode in which the religious sentiments of the sepoys were hurt. So religious sentiments of the sepoys were hurt. That is one such religious cause, but then we'll have to go back to the many years which is preceding 1857 and what developments has happened in these all years. So first of all, when we talk about the kind of that social intervention or basically interference which was done by the British, in what manner it was done. So there are a few questions which I need to ask you, because we are just going to move into that topic only after completion of this topic, socio-religious reform only. So there is always two type of reforms. One is which is internal and one which is external. So do you understand that what is external social reform? What is external social reform and what is internal social reform? Any idea? Acha chalo, theek hai? Let me ask, theek hai? One more thing, that there are two modes of the social reform. One which is initiated by the people themselves. Then a large number of the people, they are initiating the change, they wanted the change, and then there is it's happening in a gradual way, and it's a long process in which people are introspecting, retrospecting, okay? So things are changing in that way. But then there is another way of reform whereby government decides that what would be the reform, take a legal way of reform. So then that's another way. So now you tell me which is internal, which is external out of these two. The first one, I'm asking, don't add any example. In dono mein se batao. First one is internal and second one is external. Okay? So second one is external. Why so? Because impose hai. Okay? Imposed hai. That few people are deciding that what you would be doing. It's not the community decides that what we will be doing, but few people will be deciding that what is better for the community. Then, so that is imposed one. And when it is imposed one, so then you might not follow it. Okay? Even if there are some repercussions of it, that if you don't follow, so there may be some kind of punishment or some kind of other kind of things would be there. But then in the internal one, there is no punishment, and at the same point of time, since it is happening in the gradual way, so people are accepting in their minds and hearts that this is necessary. But the imposed one always creates a resistance. It's not about which one is wrong, which was right. We can't say and that imposed one is wrong. It could be right also, but then it creates a resistance in the society that we will not be accepting this way. ठीक है, तुम कौन होते हो मेरे ऊपर ये थोपने वाले? So this kind of things would be there. So basically, when we talk about the social interference from the part of the British authority, that is the external, imposed, legalistic way. So this kind of attitude was not, okay, liked by the Indians. Then, so now understand, when we talk about the British policy, and British policy particularly from 1800 onwards, so not only this policy includes the annexation of the Indian states, establishment of the British paramountcy in India, then Indian states must become subordinate to the British power, but at the same point of time, they also wanted to do intervention in the social affair of India. Then, so right from the beginning, they wanted some degree of the social reform in the Indian society. And moreover, when these reforms were introduced in a legal way, and when they were imposed, so it created ambivalence in the society towards the old orthodox order. Now the word I have used, ambivalence in the society towards old orthodox order. Ambivalence in society towards, let me write this part, then I'll explain, towards the old orthodox order. So एक बार ध्यान से समझना, that when we talk about the reform in the Indian society, are the British, that is the British the first people who are introducing the reform in the Indian society, or Indian society hasn't gone through any reform in the past? In fact, we were a society of the reform right from the beginning. So right from the beginning, we were always a society of reform, and it is one of the most accommodative, most tolerant. Just don't go by the wordings, and just don't go by that violence of the some people that does not defines this country, that if some people resort to the violence, that does not makes this country as a violent. Then some instances are happening, will happen, and it has happened in the past also. But overall, when you look at, so 95% of the society is a peaceful, tolerant and accommodative society. So now understand that we have been going through this culture from very long time. When the Vedic system started, the position of the women, okay, Vedic society, you will read, the position of the women was very high, okay, in the early Vedic society. But then slowly it started to deteriorate. And when the deterioration has started, then after many other things emerged, like untouchability, caste system, okay, many other things emerged. So when the society was going in the spiral down tradition, so then the reforms happened in the 6th century BCE. And in fact, these reforms were initiated by the upper class people itself. It's not like that the lower class people started, but upper class people itself, they themselves introspected that what is wrong. And you will be reading in the Vedic part. So these reforms are the 6th century reforms, which came in the form of the Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivika. Many other religious trends started. And after these reforms, there was some course correction in the Indian society. Then after, once again, okay, some reforms were further introduced by the Gupta rulers. Then time and again, when it was happening, so reforms were also the part of the society. On one hand, society goes into the spiral down tradition, but on the other hand, there are people who are uplifting the society. So this has always been a process. When we talk about the medieval times, then, so in medieval times also, when there were many such suffocations, and when there were many such issues, even at that point of time, Bhakti and Sufi emerged as a reform tradition. So that further reformed the society. So it's not like that British are the first who are introducing the reform in the Indian society. Then, but they claimed like this, that we were always barbaric then, and they are the one who are on a civilizing mission, and they are introducing the reform. So what they did, what their intention was, that was not wrong. For example, if they are banning Sati Pratha, that is not wrong, okay? But the way they were doing, that was wrong. And the way they were speaking, their utterances were very full of pride and full of, you can say, ego would be better word. Then, so for example, understand that when they are introducing these all reforms, it is imposed. And when it is imposed, so people who themselves were thinking कि हमारी society में सब कुछ सही नहीं है, not everything is right, we need to check it. But then when an external player, when a foreign player imposing on us, so you like that, who the hell are you to interfere in my family matters? Then, and then whatever way we were practicing will be the same. It is just similar situation. For example, no matter how much fight is there in the family, very often what happens that what we do in the family, we close all the doors then and we just take to a particular room where बाहर किसी को नहीं सुनाई दे, हम लड़ते हैं, we all fight then, but then we make sure that बाहर किसी को सुनाई नहीं दे, ठीक है? And when from बाहर से, from your neighbor interferes in it, so then you all get united. So this is what happened over here also, that when a foreign player was interfering, meddling in the affairs of India, so then it was not welcomed by majority of the Indians. So this is what we are calling that when they tried to impose the reforms, impose we are saying, okay, forcefully. So then we had a tendency to go toward old orthodoxes, बुरा ही सही, अब तो हम यही करेंगे. You know na, that this kind of attitude many a times develop. So this is what started to happen at this point of time. Then moreover, okay, there are many such things related to it, that why people are saying this. One, intention to ek jagah pe hai, okay, what they wanted. On the one hand, they are calling Hindus and Muslims as barbaric and bigots. Barbaric we discussed. What is bigot? Kattar. ठीक है, हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं, कट्टर बोलते हैं. So they are calling Hindus and Muslims as barbaric and bigots. Then after, they are calling the Hindu and Muslim rituals are one of the most primitive rituals. And then at the same point of time, they are helping, they are promoting the Christian missionaries to propagate Christianity. So these things were not matching. Intention or action में बहुत difference हो गया था. Then so they were not matching, and as such people were suffocated with it. So Sati Pratha, ठीक है, then Hindu Religious Disability Act which was in 1850s, then उसके अलावा, ठीक है, many such issues related with the child marriage or marriage issues. So this was not liked by the Indians time and again, and then 1857 provided an opportunity. ठीक है, so mention little bit. First you write that right from the beginning, British policy was identified. Right from the beginning, British policy was identified with some degree of social reform, in their agenda. Full stop. These reforms were not introduced. In gradual manner, but they were imposed on the society. Full stop. This forceful imposition of reforms, created ambivalence in society, towards the old orthodox order. And people started to resist change. Full stop. Then next point you write. British often projected themselves. British often projected themselves that they are on a civilizing mission. They are on a civilizing mission, and Indians are white man's burden. White man's burden. Full stop. They often disregarded Hindus and Muslims. They often disregarded Hindus and Muslims and called them barbaric and bigots. Called them barbaric and bigots. B-I-G-O-T. Then next you write. The proselytizing activities. You can see the spelling of this one. Proselytizing activities of Christian missionaries. What does it mean? Proselytizing. बताओ. Conversion activity. ठीक है? So the proselytizing activities of Christian missionaries further fueled the fire. Then now listen. So the next one was Hindu Religious Disability Act of 1850. Okay? And this act, as the name suggests, Hindu religious disability, meaning the target is the Hindu community and their customs and traditions. Then, so when this bill was passed, so then Hindu was always, obviously they would be fearful that they are going to change many of their traditions and the customs which they are continuing from thousands and thousands of the years. Then, so mention Hindu Religious Disability Act. Hindu Religious Disability Act of 1850s. Hindu Religious Disability Act of 1850s tried to modify many of the customs and traditions. Many of the customs and traditions of Hindu society. Customs and traditions of Hindu society. Hindus became circumspect. Hindus became circumspect. You can write doubtful also if you want. Circumspect. That British will force them to embrace Christianity. Will force them to embrace Christianity. Then, so this is what is about this socio-religious causes of the revolt. Now let's come to the last one, which is political causes of the revolt. So political causes of the revolt. Now when it comes to political causes of the revolt, so obviously we'll start with those all policies. We need to make a reference to all of them. That is subsidiary alliance system, doctrine of lapse. The most important is the doctrine of lapse. But let's talk about that, some of the initial British policies itself over here. So do you have any idea that what was the name of the policy which was initiated by no, Cornwallis, related to the Indian princely states? No idea? Doctrine of Lapse is by Dalhousie, 1848. बताओ divide and rule. Like divide and rule तो is already there. The name of the policy was effective control. Okay, understand. So what was this effective control? Cornwallis was of the view that we must annex, that he wanted to establish the control, full control on the Indian states without annexation. ठीक है? बहुत important word ये है कि full control on the Indian states without annexation. ठीक है? This was called as effective control, meaning that he wanted, if there is that internal hostility, ठीक है, mutual hostility between the Indian states, or if there is an internal conflict in the Indian state, so British will meddle in the affairs of the Indian states, and then they will use it as an opportunity to establish their control on the state. So he tried to effect it by 1792, but then by 1793 he was called back. So one of the initial policy was his effective control. Then after, inspired by him, Wellesley has come to the power in 1798, and he came up with the subsidiary alliance system. So pehli policy effective control, and the second is the subsidiary alliance system. And we know about the subsidiary alliance system, that what was there in this one, that in subsidiary alliance system they wanted to establish the British paramountcy in India, and at the same point of time that Indian powers were reduced to a subjugate power. Okay? Their sovereignty was usurped and their complete independence was not there. So they were not completely autonomous. Then the one which we need to mention over here is the doctrine of lapse. So all of you have heard about it, okay? In one way or other way, because we have seen many movies and many serials related to it. So you tell me that what was this doctrine of lapse? जैसे भी बताओ, ठीक है? Normal language, Hindi, English, ठीक है? भोजपुरी. So बताओ, एक एक करके तुम बताओ. हाँ, it's like that only, that if there is no natural successor, so then British will annex the state. Then, so now before that, I just need to tell you the Hindu law. ठीक है? एक और चीज़ ध्यान रखना कि the states which were annexed by the application of doctrine of lapse, this is a unique fact which I am telling you. It is not to be that you will not get it in the books that कि लिखा होगा, that all the states which were annexed, they were Hindu states by doctrine of lapse. ठीक है? Because it was Hindu law. ध्यान से समझना. Hindu law says that if the Raja, if the king has died without a natural successor, so then they can, that the adoptions from the extended family will be recognized. ठीक है? Extended family मतलब भाई का बेटा, बहन का बेटा, मतलब जो भी, that those who are there. ठीक है? So this is the Hindu law right from the ancient times, that if the Raja or the king or the monarch doesn't have his own son, so then adoptions from the extended families will be considered for the throne, that the kingship. Okay? Now British actually changed this thing. Okay? They changed this thing, that they said that in the case of the adoptions, okay, they will see, it will be in the discretion of the British that they will recognize it, or they can recognize it, or they can de-recognize it. Meaning that it will depend on them कि हम decide करेंगे कि कौन सा recognize होगा, कौन सा recognize नहीं होगा. This is what is there. It is often associated with the Dalhousie, who actually affected it in between 1848 to 56. But then, was he the first person to come up with this policy? Any idea? Was he the first person? See, it is often, जहाँ पे भी पढ़ोगे, it is only associated with the Dalhousie, but reality is something different. Actually, without giving a name, this was already in the practice. Dalhousie gave it a name, doctrine of lapse, but it was already there in the practice. 1834, ठीक है? Court of Directors have already suggested a policy like this. And why they suggested? Because there was an event in Karnataka. So understand, In 1824, there is a princely state in Karnataka. The name of the princely state was Kittur. Then, so the name of the princely state was Kittur, and the king of the Kittur, he died in 1824, and after that, okay, after his death, so the wife of the or the queen of the Kittur, Rani Chinnamma, okay, she adopted she adopted a son from the extended family. Raja's brother's son. Okay? He was adopted. But then here British authority in Karnataka, they did not recognize this adoption, which led to fight between British and Kittur Rani Chinnamba, which continued for 2-3 years, and finally Rani was defeated in it. Then, so in fact, when we talk about Rani Lakshmi Bai, so before that, the name of the Kittur Rani Chinnamma also comes into the play, who defended, and she fought very bravely over here. Then, so that was the first instance of the annexation. But यहाँ पे policy का कोई नाम नहीं था, ठीक है? There was no name of the policy. In 1834, Court of Directors suggested that this Karnataka thing was a better one. This kind of policy we need to go ahead. Then after also 3-4 states they annexed in this way without naming it. And when Dalhousie came to power, so 1848, he made it a policy. So he made it a policy, he named it, and he defined the rules. Then, so all the states which were annexed under doctrine of lapse, all of them were the Hindu states. None of them were Muslim state, all of them were Hindu states. So ये एक unique statement हो सकता है exam में, in prelims examination, that under the doctrine of lapse, which of the following statements related to the doctrine of lapse is correct, and they will give you that both Hindu and Muslim states can be annexed. Only Hindu states were annexed. So then you will have to go with the only Hindu states were annexed by the application of the doctrine of lapse. So this was the major reason. And which all states were annexed after when Dalhousie has come to power? So starting with the Satara, Satara, then Jaipur, then Bhagat, Satara, Jaipur, Bhagat, Sambhal, Chota Udaipur, then Jhansi, then Nagpur. Sequence wise I'm telling you कि कैसे sequence में था. So can you tell me that where is this Udaipur? Gujarat. Where? Gujarat? Rajasthan? Rajasthan? This was Chhattisgarh state. So ये भी एक question हो सकता है. So this Udaipur is basically Chota Udaipur state of the Chhattisgarh state. So लिख लेना जब we are going to mention it ना. So there you write. So these all states were annexed, and then after annexation of these all states, we are done with the utmost disrespect towards the rulers. So we'll talk about it, that why this disrespect is also one such factor. So thoda thoda likho, ठीक है? So political में you want to write the background वाला part भी, effective control and subsidiary reference में लिखना है, ठीक है? तो लिख लो. So mention very first one, that from the very beginning, British adopted approach of meddling in the affairs of Indian states. Meddling, MEDDLING, meddling in the affairs of Indian states. For example, Cornwallis came up with, policy of effective control. इसको अंडरलाइन कर लेना, ठीक है? Policy of effective control. Then mention further after it. As per this policy, British wanted to maintain their complete control their complete control on Indian states, without annexation, without annexation, without annexation. Then mention without annexation, full stop. After it, they wanted to make the full use of, they wanted to make full use of Indian hostilities, full use of Indian hostilities, and turn the hostilities in their favor, and turn the hostilities in their favor. In their favor. Then, so that is Dalhousie. Then, right? Paragraph change करके लिखना. Wellesley affected subsidiary alliance system. Wellesley affected subsidiary alliance system whereby Indians' powers were subjugated, and British authority was declared paramount power. British authority was declared paramount power. Then next you write title लिख लो, Doctrine of Lapse. So Doctrine of Lapse. So in this you mention this policy is generally associated with Dalhousie. Is generally associated with Dalhousie, who implemented it in between 1848 to 56. Who implemented it in between 1848 to 56. ठीक है? Then mention as per the Hindu law, adoptions नहीं लिखना, adoptions were done when the ruler is dying without any apparent successor. Then Dalhousie tried to change this position. He declared that it is on the discretion of the British authority. It is discretion on the British authority to recognize or de-recognize. Adoptions as the successor of the throne. Mention in other words, he maintained if the Indian ruler is dying without any apparent successor from the direct blood, is dying without any apparent successor of direct blood, meaning his own son. Direct blood means his own son. Any apparent successor of direct blood, then adoptions from the extended families, will not be recognized. Adoptions from the extended families will not be recognized. Will not be recognized. Full stop. By the application of this policy, following Indian states were annexed. Satara, Jaipur, Sambhal, Bhagat, Chota Udaipur, Jhansi, Nagpur, Tanjore, Awadh. And it is in a chronology, year-wise. So the last one is in 1856, this is 1848. If you want, I can write all the dates also. But then if I do write, so then you'll be like, you need to remember. Chalo, I'll write, but then if you're not able to memorize it, that's okay. So this is 1848, 1849, 1849, 50, 52, 1853, 54, 55, 56. So there are only two states which were annexed in the 1849. Okay? Rest of them in a different year. And you can remember that in 1851 there was no annexation. So now understand, after writing this, when we talk about these annexations, so how they have been done, then these were obviously, it's a forceful annexation. So obviously the Indian rulers would not be respected, okay? And they were not respected, and then after, the subjects of the Indian rulers, obviously they will also be offended that how their rulers have been treated. And so basically they are mistreated. So when the mutiny started, people are not only going to take their own revenge, but they are also taking the revenge of their rulers. Then, so mention in this one last point you write that the wholesale sweeping away of the Indian states, the wholesale sweeping away, होलसेल लिखते हो ना, जैसे बाजार में जाते हो तो वही वाला होलसेल लिख लो, ठीक है? So the wholesale sweeping away of the Indian states, जैसे कल मैच में हुआ था ना, wholesale sweeping away of the Pakistani batsman, ठीक है? तो Indian states was done with the utmost disrespect. To the Indian rulers. Disrespect to the Indian rulers. Full stop. The natives of these states, the natives of these states were highly offended, and their pride was hurt. Then, when the mutiny started, they all were seething with SEETHING. They all were seething with, when the mutiny started, they all were seething with revenge. Seething, SEETHING. बदले की भावना. ठीक है? This is what is the meaning of the seething with revenge. ठीक है? So now this is what is all about the political causes of the revolt. Then, so political causes of the revolt. Now we are going to talk about the course of the revolt and the prominent leaders of the revolt. So in prominent leaders, we do have many stories, and stories basically what are the incidents then, and those real incidents. So though for the writing purpose there would be less, but then to know the incidents, it is important then. And moreover, one more thing is to be kept in the mind, that very often when we write the answers then, or when we are studying the modern Indian history, we often have a tendency to take a very soft position towards the Indians and very harsh position towards the British. The case is not like this then, that it cannot be that softer position cannot be taken for the Indians, and very harsher cannot be taken for the British. In fact, barbaric deeds were there from both the sides, you need to remember, from Indian side also and from the British side also. So there are few facts which I'll be sharing with you, and this is what we call that the practical presentation of the facts which were there at that point of time. Then, so just start with the course of revolt, just understand how it all started. Already we have mentioned. So immediate factor what we discussed, the rifle episode. ठीक है? उसी की वजह से सब कुछ start हुआ. So when did it started? Actually it was in February 1857. And for the very first time when this new rifle was introduced in the 19th Native Bengal Infantry of the Berhampur. ठीक है? It is called as Brahmapur, but as you know the British English then, so they called it Berhampur then. So in the 19th Native Bengal Infantry, when it was introduced, so the sepoys, they refused to use the greased cartridges. Then when they refused, so here they were disbanded from the services, meaning that they were fired from the services. यहाँ पे कुछ बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं हुआ, but they were fired from the services. Then after, the second event happened in the March, and this happened in the Barakpur area of Calcutta. So when this particular rifle was introduced, and when the sepoys refused, so one sepoy, Mangal Pandey, he killed his commanding officer. Okay? And from this point onwards, the British attitude became very hard. Not only Mangal Pandey was overpowered and executed, but from here onwards, British have decided that they will not go easy, they will not go softer on the sepoys who are refusing. The third incident happened on 23rd of April, and this is the most important event in Meerut. So the native cavalry, Ghudsavar, okay? So native cavalry of the Meerut, they refused, and here also, same way. So once they refused, so here it was decided that these all sepoys, not everyone refused, but jitne logon ne refuse kiya tha, they all will be tried by a court martial. And the trial started, first they were put into the jail, the trial started, and then after 9th of May, the judgment was given. Okay? As per the judgment, what was there? So these sepoys, not only they were humiliated, okay? And one of the very extreme kind of humiliation for any person who is in army, who is in a uniform, is to strip off his uniform. Okay? So strip off his uniform. So their uniforms were stripped. Then they were fettered. Okay? You know the meaning of the fettered? Batao? Any idea? Fettered means that chain में बांध के और खींच के ले जाना. हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं? कड़ी बोलते हो ना? So हाँ, बेड़ियाँ. So in their legs, ठीक है, these बेड़ियाँ were put, ठीक है, and all of them were lined, and they were lined in a queue and they were marched to the jail as if they are animals. And then one punishment was given to them, that was a 10-year hard imprisonment. So this is what happened to them. And when this happened, so those people who have not refused to use the rifles, those sepoys, those who were not given any punishment because they were not involved in it, they felt that they are also getting humiliated with this. And then next morning, so these sepoys who were not the part of it, they released their fellow sepoys from the jail, and by the evening they have killed all the officers in Meerut. 10th of May evening ko they started for Delhi. 11th of May morning they have reached to Delhi. They proclaimed Bahadur Shah Zafar as the Emperor of Hindustan and started the mutiny in his name. But Bahadur Shah Zafar, when he learnt it at the very first time, so he was little hesitant because obviously nobody has idea that what is happening then. So he didn't had any idea. But then when sepoys have gone to his place, convinced him, he was ready to give his leadership. And then onwards, 11th May we can say that formally the mutiny has started. Okay? So mention little bit course of revolt. Course of the revolt. So mention very first thing. इसमें कोई टाइटल या पॉइंट्स नहीं लिखना, ऐसे ही लिखते, पॉइंट भी कर सकते हो, बट you mentioned with the very first paragraph. In February 1857, 19th Native Bengal Infantry, 19th Native Bengal Infantry at Berhampur, Bengal, at Berhampur, Bengal. Refused to use the greased cartridges. Refused to use the greased cartridges. Greased cartridges. Full stop. As such, the sepoys were disbanded from the army. The sepoys were disbanded from the army. Disbanded from the army. Then next point you write. In March 1857, the native infantry of Barakpur. Native infantry, you can see the spelling of Barakpur. The native infantry of Barakpur in Calcutta, refused to use the greased cartridges. Refused to use the greased cartridges. Then mention one of the sepoy, Mangal Pandey. One of the sepoy, Mangal Pandey, went a step ahead and killed his commanding officer. Went a step ahead and killed his commanding officer. His commanding officer. Full stop. Then mention Mangal Pandey was overpowered. Mangal Pandey was overpowered and executed. Mangal Pandey was overpowered and executed. Then third instance you write. The most important, third you write, the most important event was in Meerut. Was in Meerut. Full stop. On 23rd of April, on 23rd of April, native cavalry of Meerut, native cavalry of Meerut refused, native cavalry of Meerut refused to use the greased cartridges. Full stop. At this time, sepoys were tried by court martial. I hope you know court martial, military court. Okay? So court martial, full stop. On 9th of May, judgment was pronounced. On 9th of May, judgment was pronounced. Full stop. Sepoys were stripped off from their uniforms. Fettered and marched to jail. They were also handed over 10-year hard imprisonment. They were also handed over 10-year hard imprisonment. This was humiliating for the other fellow sepoys also. This was humiliating for the other fellow sepoys also. Then mention after it fellow sepoys also. Next morning on 10th of May, sepoys mutinied. They killed all their commanding officers. And started their march towards Delhi. Then mention. After it you write, started their march towards Delhi. On 11th of May, reaching Delhi, they proclaimed Bahadur Shah Zafar. As the Emperor of Hindustan. And started the mutiny in his name. Started the mutiny in his name. So this is one part. Okay? And just a last line likho, then we'll go into the next topic. So mention, very soon, revolt engulfed. ENGULFED. North India, Central India, Western India, and Eastern India. North India, Central India, Western India, and Eastern India. But But southern India remained relatively unaffected. Southern India remained relatively unaffected. So we'll discuss in the last part in analysis that why southern India was relatively unaffected. Okay, we'll have a discussion on it. Okay, but then let's talk about the prominent leaders of the revolt. So write a title: Prominent Leaders of the Revolt. So area wise, so first we'll start with Delhi. Okay, that who were the prominent leaders at Delhi. So first of all, in Delhi, as we all know, that Bahadur Shah Zafar was declared as the leader of the entire mutiny. But then we already know that he was already old when when he is on the Mughal throne, and he cannot fight himself. But then he has provided his leadership. So symbolic leadership in Delhi was in the hand of the Bahadur Shah, but the real leadership was in the hand of the General Bakht Khan, who brought his troops from Bareilly for fighting. But then, when it comes to Bahadur Shah, so final episode when we are going to talk about him, that when the revolt was suppressed and he was arrested, and after his arrest, he pleaded to the British authority. Just understand that he pleaded to the British authority that since he was the one who has given authority to this particular mutiny, so he is the culprit, that he can be given any kind of punishment that is acceptable to him. But then he pleaded to the British authority that this punishment must not be given to my sons, his three sons who were captured, then that they don't have any role in it. So then British authority said that we can give you assurance that whatever treatment would be given to you, that can be assured. But what treatment will be given to your sons, don't ask for it. Okay? And then his three sons were taken to the place. Okay? A place where not only they were stripped off, okay, and then at that particular place, British, they gave guns to the rifles to the Sikh sepoys, okay, Sikh sepoys, and then they said that this is the time. Then this is the time when you can take the revenge of the killing of your gurus, okay, and which guru? Guru Tegh Bahadur, okay, and the place where they were taken was the Sisganj Gurudwara. I hope you remember. I think we have talked about it. It was the place where Aurangzeb assassinated Guru Tegh Bahadur. So they gave it to the Sikh sepoys and then asked them to kill the three sons of the Bahadur Shah. So though as a policy wise, formal policy wise, divide and rule, we can't say, okay, that it was implemented. But informally it was going on. It was already done by the British authority, and this was one first instance. That Guru Tegh Bahadur's death has happened in the past, and then there is no relation with Bahadur Shah, but then the revenge that British are inciting the feelings of the Sikh community. Then after, second one, so this is Delhi. Then in Raebareli area, revolt was organized by the formal ruler of the Rohilkhand, Khan Bahadur. But then the most important episode in the 1857 revolt is the Kanpur. Okay? One of the most important, Kanpur and Jhansi. Okay? Now, here I just need to tell you a few things related to it. The one which I was calling only British as the barbaric is not purely correct. They were barbaric, there is no doubt about it. But so as the side, that Indian side also has many instances of it. So Kanpur, the original leadership in the Kanpur was in the hand of the Nana Sahib. Who was Nana Sahib? Son of the last Peshwa, Bajirao II. Okay? So son of the last Peshwa, Bajirao II, and moreover, you remember when Peshwaship was abolished in 1819? So then this small principality of the Bithur was given to the Bajirao II. Okay? And this Bithur is in Kanpur. Then, so small principality of the Bithur was given to him. He was living in the Kanpur, and this is the place where even Rani Lakshmi Bai will also come in contact with the Nana Sahib. Then, so Nana Sahib was the adopted son, and when Peshwa's death has happened, so he was still receiving the pension of his father, okay, or Bajirao II. But then all of a sudden in 1850s pension discontinued, and then But Nana Sahib has sent one of his employee, you can say, or one of his trusted aide to Britain to ask for the pension. But British authority were not giving any such relief to him, and they said, maintained very clearly that no pension would be granted from this point of time. So he was disgruntled from this. Then now when the mutiny has started, so I'm just going to tell you some names, you don't need to write, you just understand the story and the entire event which happened at this point of time. So in Kanpur, okay, the British officer, commanding officer who was there in Kanpur, his name was General Hugh Wheeler. Then, and Hugh Wheeler and Nana Sahib were having a very good acquaintance. Okay? In fact, they were kind of that people, rich class people who are meeting daily basis. Then in the evening, and they are playing many games. In fact, they were playing chess, and then some other games were also there. So they were always in conversation with each other. And it seemed that there's a good bond between the two. When the mutiny started, and when it has already started from Delhi, and then it is in midway to Kanpur. So then one fine evening, Hugh Wheeler, he confined in that Nana Sahib that he's very fearful. That what if the mutineers, they reach to Kanpur? So here large population of the Britishers are there, large population of Anglo-Indians are there. And moreover, that out of all the British cantonments which are there in this area, the maximum number of the women and children are there in the Kanpur. So then Nana Sahib assured to General Hugh Wheeler that you sleep in peace, and moreover that trust on me, that if it happens, so I'll be here to safeguard. Okay? So then he has given this assurance. Now that was the last day, morning, mutineers have reached to Kanpur, and then the news was that Nana Sahib has sided with the mutineers. Then it was shock of the life for the General Hugh Wheeler, that why he has sided with the mutineers. Moreover, that what they can do. So they had only few options left. Mutineers were still proceeding in the Kanpur. So in Kanpur, as you know, Ganga river is Kanpur, okay? And on the banks of the Ganga river, rear end of the city, there was a hospital, British hospital, and the name of this British hospital was Dragoons Hospital. Then in this hospital, so shape of this hospital was like this, triangle. Its boundary was like a triangle. Then, and this was the building. This was an open area, this part, and in this part there was a well from where the water was fetched. So now they decided that all of them will be going to the Dragoons Hospital. And why Dragoons Hospital was chosen? Because it was very closer to the Sita Chaura Ghat of the Kanpur. Then, so Sita Chaura Ghat. Moreover, Allahabad was the biggest cantonment of the British, and moreover, it was always believed that mutineers can never gain control on the Allahabad, because it was fully loaded with the weapons and everything. Then, so they were expecting that if they call help from the Allahabad, then so Allahabad is hardly 190 kilometer road wise from Kanpur. But river wise, it is hardly 150 to 160 kilometers, which will hardly take 4-5 hours from Kanpur to Allahabad if they are taking the boats. So they all were expecting that boats will come from Allahabad and then will go to Allahabad. So this was their plan. Now everyone is in the hospital. They are waiting for the help from the Allahabad. Now mutineers have reached to this whole place, and they have surrounded. Moreover, for their defense, they were also equipped with the weapons, okay? Those Britishers and then Anglo-Indians who are there. So they were also laced with the sophisticated weapons. So once the mutineers have surrounded this particular Dragoons Hospital, so there was a regular exchange of the fire from both the sides. And moreover, what was happening, that whoever is going to fetch the water, so fire exchange was required, because if they are not exchanging the fire, nobody can fetch the water from here. Then, so it led to killing of some sepoys also, and it led to killing of some people also. But the situation was becoming scary day by day, because the ration which was there in the hospital, that was getting exhausted. The number of the people were too large, and the ration was very limited. And at the same point of time, scarcity of water started to happen, because not all the time you can easily fetch the water from here. So Now that situation was very precarious. It was very that dim light of the hope was there with the British. What happened? One letter was thrown into the premise then, and this letter said, and this letter was thrown by the men of the Nana Sahib. So in this letter it was said that if British surrender their arms, then all their weapons, so they will be given a safe passage to Sita Chaura Ghat and they can go to Allahabad. Then, so now in the British circle there were many differences of opinion, and General Hugh Wheeler, he was not ready to accept this offer because he said that I already trusted him on that night, and then today I cannot trust. But then the entire lot, they became angry on General Hugh Wheeler. They went against him and they said that what options do we have? Obviously, they didn't had any other option. So they decided that they will surrender. They surrendered on the next day, and then lines were created from this hospital to the Sita Chaura Ghat, and moreover, unusual practice was followed over here. So boats were there, good number of boats were there. Instruction was given that all the men, okay, they will board the boat first, and women and children would be the last. So when all the men, okay, majority of the men, when they have boarded the boats, then, and all of a sudden what happened, that some thunder came. It was not a thunder, but cannons were hidden at one place, and it was bombardment started from the cannons. All the ships were, all the boats were destroyed. And so as the people who were there, they all died. It led to hue and cry in that situation. In fact, some of the sepoys resorted to some sort of violence also, violence with the women also, and violence with the children also. But then, why it was done? The very first fishy thing over here, that in any such emergency situation, women and children are the first to board the ship, to board the boat. Have you seen the Titanic? Then in Titanic, it was women and the old people were boarding the other ships, but not the men. So this is what is the one thing which was fishy. Now they did not understood at that point of time. And what was the plan? That this women and children, they will be captured or they will be taken as a prisoner. They will be kept at some other place as a point of negotiation. Okay? So now it is said that near about 250 women and children were there. They were taken to a place, and the name of the place was Bibi Ghar in Kanpur. And then they were kept as a prisoner. Now, when this news has reached to the Allahabad cantonment, obviously they will be enraged. Then, so they were enraged, and Allahabad cantonment has decided to move there were 75% of the troops towards Kanpur. Then, so troops towards Kanpur, because now it came on the pride of the British. And in fact, this incident is said to be one of the most unfortunate for the Indians and very fortunate for the British. Why so? Because you know, when it comes to the pride, when it comes to their something which is very special to them, which they hold very dear, so then the emotion turns a man into a superhuman. And this is what happened to the British people, that they turned to be, they were so determined to take the revenge, that they very readily moved to the Kanpur. Now when this news reached to the Nana Sahib that they have moved to the Kanpur, so what he did, that he gave the charge of this particular Bibi Ghar to one of his trusted aide, and this trusted aide was a transgender, Hussaini Begum. Then she was given the charge of it, and she was actually earlier she used to organize the things. Then she had that kind of acumen, but now she was also this transgender Hussaini Begum. She was also in a quandary, in confusion, and in fact she was also becoming fearful. What she did, that she called her lover, okay, to decide that what is to be done. And her lover was one of the extreme person. What he did, that he sexually exploited women. In fact, he did some of the august acts of those time, that he smashed the heads of many children together, and then they were thrown to the nearby well. Then, so one of the worst act was performed over here. There is no denial in this particular fact. And you know, after it, when the mutineers have reached to this place, so not mutineers, sorry, British have reached to this place, it is not the revenge that they are going to take. It will be better called as vengeance. Then, so revenge would be a smaller word. It is vengeance. And then they resorted to one of the most extreme violence, which hasn't been seen in the Indian history till this point of time. So one of the very first act that not only they released those women from the Bibi Ghar, but then they were all lined up to see something. Good number of the sepoys, they were brought to Bibi Ghar, and just in front of the Bibi Ghar, they were tied, their hands were tied to the back, and then in front of them, beef, or basically that cow was massacred, pig was massacred, cut into 1,000 pieces, and then fed into the mouth of the sepoys. And the question which everyone was asking, what about your religion? Where is your religion? To Hindu sepoys, beef. Okay? To Muslim sepoys, pork. Then, and this is what they were asking. And then after, they were hacked to a slow death in a very brutal way. In fact, it is said that the Bithur area or the civil line area of the Kanpur became so uncivil that there was not even a single tree from where a body was not hanging. It became a ghost town. And this particular Kanpur episode defined that when the revolt will end, because British were highly determined. They were very organized. It united them in a much better way. So this is what happened. And then as you can see that very often you must have read many such literature, and then you must have seen many such movies and all that. We all see that we all talk about the bravery of the Rani Lakshmi Bai, even Begum Hazrat Mahal also at the same point of time, Kunwar Singh of Bihar also, but then Nana Sahib's name is just in points. Okay? That's the reason. So barbarism was there from both the sides. There is no denial in it, and you must be aware about it. So though for the writing purpose we have less, but then to know we have many other things. So I hope you got it. Okay? So this is the incident at the Kanpur. Then let's move on to the next area. So after the Kanpur, next area is the Awadh. Right? Now what unfolded in the Awadh was altogether different. It was not doctrine of lapse. Awadh mein issue kya tha? That Awadh mein basically the king was deported. Okay? King was deported, and who was the king of the Awadh? So king of the Awadh was Nawab Wajid Ali Shah. Okay? Why he was deported from the Awadh? So understand. Later on, when we are going to talk about the art and culture, we will see Indian classical dance and Indian classical music. One of the biggest exponent of the classical dance and music was Nawab Wajid Ali Shah of Lucknow. He was one of the exponent of the Kathak and Thumri. Kathak in the dance form and Thumri in the music. Then, so he always promoted these classical forms or these dance forms and the music. Here what happened, that he was declared by British authority unsound of mind. And in fact, you know that there is a Hindi word which is called as naach. अरे सुना है, सबने सुना है नाच, ठीक है? So British were using a word this for naach, ठीक है? And this was declared that whoever promotes the naach, then he is unsound of mind. He is not sound enough to rule and administer the area. So he was framed in this. And then after he was removed from the power and he was deported to Calcutta. Now at this place what happened? So the queen of the Lucknow, okay, or Awadh, Begum Hazrat Mahal, she organized the administration of Lucknow, and her minor son Bijris Qadir was proclaimed as Nawab. Okay? So Bijris Qadir was proclaimed as Nawab. Understand? Who was this Begum Hazrat Mahal, and what is the role of this lady in this entire embroiling issues which are going in Awadh? She was actually a Kathak dancer. Then she did not belong to a high class Muslim family, and Awadh rulers were high class Muslims. Then she belonged to a lower caste Muslim family. Then and her original name was Mehak. Okay? So original name was Mehak, but then when Nawab fell in love with her and then they got married, so he gave her the title of the Begum Hazrat Mahal. Then now what happened, since she belonged to a lower class of the Muslim society, her family was very reticent. Then they were not accepting her as the queen of the Awadh. It is a similar situation like the episode in the Maratha, Mastani's episode. She was not accepted, but then Nawab was very much confirm on it that she would be the queen. Now, what happened when he was removed from the power? So, she became the queen, and then her son, Bijris Kadir, became the ruler, who was a minor, and she was the regent. But then the family members of the Nawab, they were the one who conspired with the British. They wanted to remove Rani from the power, and then the royal blood, okay, or basically the high class Muslims, they must be there in the power in the Awadh. And that was the issue. It is because of their family interference, British got the opportunity, and then they were not letting Rani to organize the administration. And when the mutiny started, so she joined the ranks of the mutineers. So issue in the Awadh was different. Though अभी आज हमने क्या लिखा, ठीक है, एक बार ध्यान से समझना. डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ लैप्स में अवध नेम ऑल्सो आई हैव रिटन. देन but then we mentioned that only Hindu states were annexed. So Awadh was not annexed as per the doctrine of lapse. It was annexed because of the internal issues which were there in the Awadh. ठीक है. So यहाँ पे भी लिख लेंगे, कोई issue नहीं है, but वहाँ पे उसको बस एक mark कर देना that not annexed by doctrine of lapse. So now listen to the story. So let's get back. So Begum Hazrat Mahal. Then, so Begum Hazrat Mahal organized the administration of the Lucknow or Awadh. I hope you know the area of the Awadh. कहाँ से कहाँ तक है? It will include Lucknow, Barabanki, Ayodhya, Faizabad. ठीक है? So these all are the Awadh area. Ayodhya से लेके Lucknow तक, that is Awadh. Then, so now understand. So she organized the regular administration with the help of both Hindu and Muslims, Muslim people, okay, Muslim officers. And then finally, when the revolt has started, so she also realized that in the midway that she cannot win this battle, and then she had to take refuge in Nepal. Then, when the revolt was suppressed, ab dhyan se samajhna, when the revolt was suppressed, and in 1858 Queen Victoria's declaration would be there. So at that point of time, Queen Victoria declaration में एक one very first part was that Queen Victoria proclaimed that from here onwards British will not be annexing any Indian states and their rights would be respected. So as per this particular line of the Queen Victoria, Begum Hazrat Mahal was sent an invitation by the British authority after the suppression of the revolt. They maintained in that letter that Queen can come back to India. She will get the British pension and she can live in comfort in her area. Her rights would be recognized. And then when this offer was made to her, so she wrote a counter letter, and in that letter she mentioned that though I love my motherland, then I'm very much in pain that I'm not in my motherland. I miss her a lot. But then at the same point of time, I cannot trust the infidels. So I cannot trust the infidels, and moreover, it's better for me to die in the wilderness of the Nepal than becoming a pensioner of you infidels. And she never came back from Nepal, she died in Nepal itself. So, can you see that her statement is also very similar to the statement of the Tipu Sultan? Okay? So mention little bit, abhi likho. So Delhi mein likho, symbolic leadership was with Emperor Bahadur Shah, but real command was in the hand of General Bakht Khan. Real command was in the hand of General Bakht Khan. Then mention. Next you write after this Bareilly. Next area, Bareilly. Former ruler of Rohilkhand, Khan Bahadur. Khan Bahadur was in charge at Bareilly. Was in charge at Bareilly. Then mention Kanpur. Kanpur. And in Kanpur you write ब्रैकेट्स में लिख लेना बिठूर BITHOOR बिठूर then mention Bithur was the small principality Bithur was the small principality given to last Peshwa Bajirao II. Last Peshwa Bajirao II. Then after the death of Peshwa his pension stopped. His pension stopped. Full stop. Adopted son of Peshwa, Nana Sahib. Adopted son of Peshwa, Nana Sahib persuaded British authority to continue with the pension. But they refused. Then mention, but they refused. When the mutiny started, Nana Sahib joined the ranks of mutineers. Then one more line you add. Tantya Tope was one of his trusted aid. AID. Tantya Tope was one of his trusted aid. I'll give you break in 4-5 minutes. Just bear with it. Jhansi episode we'll discuss later. Just talk about, just finish the Faizabad and Bihar. Okay. So now after it, Kanpur. Sorry. Awadh we have written. अवध नहीं लिखा है, ठीक है. तो नेक्स्ट यू राइट अवध. इसमें मेंशन करो अवध नवाब वाजिद अली शाह was deported to Calcutta by British authority. Full stop. His minor son Bijris Qadir was appointed as the next Nawab. His minor son Bijris Qadir, BIJRIS, was appointed next Nawab under the regency of Begum Hazrat Mahal. Then British continued to interfere in the political affairs of Awadh. full stop. When the mutiny started, Begum also joined the mutiny against British authority. ठीक है? So now you can take break and अभी बचा क्या है? बिहार, फैजाबाद and झांसी. ठीक है? So these three places. So we have written till Awadh. So let's listen about the other areas after Awadh. So Faizabad, Bihar, and last discussion would be Jhansi. So when it comes to Faizabad, so in Faizabad the revolt was organized by Maulavi Ahmadullah. And as his name itself will suggest, why he was offended? Rent-free states. Okay? We wrote now that confiscation of the rent-free states, and those who were affected were Maulvis and ulemas. So Maulvi Ahmadullah's rent-free state was confiscated by the British authority, and as such he was also, okay, he was also fighting for that return back of this rent-free state. Moreover, he is a relevant personality. Why so? That from exam perspective, when Ayodhya thing, that judgment came, so 5-acre land was allocated for the creation of a mosque. You remember? And that mosque premise is named after Maulvi Ahmadullah, where not only there is a mosque, but there is also a hospital, there is also a library. So that is all with the name of the Maulvi Ahmadullah. ठीक है? So ये याद रखना हो सकता है, मतलब क्योंकि 5 साल पुराने क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं, 5 साल नहीं 6 साल पुराने क्वेश्चन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन दिस ईयर पेपर दे आस्क्ड अबाउट स्वदेशी मूवमेंट, एंड देन दे आस्क्ड अबाउट द नेशनल हैंडलूम डे स्टार्टेड इन 2015. ठीक है? And the date was Swadeshi movement initiation date. So connection was established between Swadeshi and this. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि current का question is just 1 or 2 current question could be 5-6 years back also. Generally जितने current के questions होते हैं वो 2 साल के होते हैं. ठीक है? 2 साल में भी mostly 1 year. You can, that what we can say that 90% of the current questions are from this last 1 year, but then 1 or 2 question could be there from last 3-4 years. Okay? So let's come back to this one. So Maulavi Ahmadullah organized the revolt from Faizabad, Ayodhya. Then what about Bihar? So in Bihar, Kunwar Singh, landlord of Jagdishpur, he organized the revolt. He was a man in his 70s, but then he was already offended by confiscation of his landed estate. And by what? So you remember that what kind of settlement was there in Bihar? Permanent. And you remember sunset clause. So his land was confiscated by application of the sunset clause. So he was fighting for getting back his landed estate. And he was an outstanding leader because he fought bravely, and despite being in 70s, he was leading from the front, and then he died in the combat itself. Then the last but not the least but most important is the Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi. So understand who was she. Originally, that she was a Marathi Brahmin. Then that she was a Marathi Brahmin born and brought up in Kasi. Her father was a reputed officer in the Bajirao II's court. In fact, her upbringing, some part of her upbringing was in the court of the Bajirao II. Okay? And it is in the Bajirao courts she learned many martial arts. So sword, horse riding, and then swimming. So many such things which was only a domain of the men, she was learned by her. So she was very well versed in all these martial arts. Then finally what happened? Her marriage happened with the Raja Gangadhar Rao Nevalkar of Jhansi. Then, so Raja Gangadhar Rao Nevalkar of Jhansi, and he gave her title of the Lakshmi Bai. Her original name was not Lakshmi Bai, she was Manikarnika. Then sorry. So when the marriage was consummated, so after the consummation of the marriage, one son was born, and the name of son was Damodar. But it was unfortunate that within 4 months of the birth, he died. Then, so within 4 months of the birth, he died. After the death, king was also in coma. He was terminally ill, and then it was very much sure that he will not survive. So then hurriedly what happened, that one adoption was done. Adoption was basically his brother's son, whose name was Anand. Anand was adopted and he was renamed as Damodar. This is the time 1853 when British authority Dalhousie, he refused to recognize the claim of Damodar. Then uh, this area was annexed in 1853. But when British have come to annex this area, Rani has given a battle cry that मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी. Moreover, her life was saved because she was not vacating the area. So British have come that they have come to Jhansi, that if they had to kill, so they will kill the Rani also. But then her life was saved by one of her maid, Jhalkari Bai, and she was wearing the attire of the Rani, and she diverted the attention of the British authority, and that's how Rani moved out of the Jhansi fort. But then she started to make alliances with the people. So she persuaded King of Gwalior also, Sindhyas also, but Sindhyas at this point of time, they were not in support of the Rani. And she got the help of the trusted aid of the Nana Sahib, Tantya Tope. Finally, the battle happened. Okay? So battle happened on the outskirts of the Gwalior. And in this battle, it was unbalanced fight, obviously, because British were laced with the sophisticated weapons, and at the same point of time, Rani was fighting with the swords, traditional weapons. Then, and she was tying her son on the back. Then the battle moved on, and then further, she was not in a position to win the battle, but then she was in position to inspire the battle. Then she was hit on the backside, one of her shoulder, and then after she was hit on the head also. She was fighting with both the hands. Now, when blood started oozing out, she was very much sure that she will not survive. And then that's the time she tightened the rein of her horse, and then she crossed the river. She knew that she will die soon, and she has gone to a nearby temple where she requested to the priest that as soon possible, burn her body. Take care, put her into the fire. Right? And when they asked that why she is like this, so then she maintained that she does not want that her body must get into the hands of the British authority, because she does not trust them that they will mutilate her body. What treatment they will be giving to her, already it has been seen that what has happened in the Kanpur, right? That they are mutilating with the bodies of the people. So it will be against her dignity. And by saying these words only, she died. And then in a quick pace, these priests of that particular temple, they burnt her body. By the time half of her body was burnt, British have arrived at that place, but then they cannot get her. And the child was escorted out of that place, and it didn't came in the hand of the British authority. So that's how her child survived, okay, and then she inspired the lot. After the mutiny was over, everything was suppressed. So then the general who was fighting with the Rani Lakshmi Bai, General Hugh Rose, he paid homage, and he said that the mutiny of the Hindustan had produced but one man, and that man is a woman. Then, so this is how he paid the homage, and with her death, the revolt has come to a final conclusion. In fact, when we talk about that, how the other people died, so Bahadur Shah already we mentioned. In fact, earlier also we have written that he was deported to Rangoon, where he died in Rangoon itself. Then what about this particular Maulavi Ahmadullah? So Maulavi Ahmadullah was killed by a pro-British Raja at Shahjahanpur. He was not killed by the British, but he was killed by a pro-British Raja at Shahjahanpur. Then Kunwar Singh, he died in the combat itself. Tantya Tope, he was captured and hanged, and Rani Lakshmi Bai, she died in the combat itself. So this is how it all came to an end. And Nana Sahib and Begum Hazrat Mahal. So Nana Sahib fled to Nepal, and Begum Hazrat Mahal also got refuge in Nepal. So this is how it has come to an end. So mention, you write Awadh ke baad, you write Faizabad. Faizabad. And in Faizabad you write Revolt was organized by Maulavi Ahmadullah. Maulavi Ahmadullah, whose rent-free estate was confiscated by the orders of Inam Commission. Then after Faizabad, you write Bihar. In Bihar, you're right. Revolt was organized by landlord of Jagdishpur, landlord of Jagdishpur, Kunwar Singh, landlord of Jagdishpur, Kunwar Singh, full stop. He was an old man. He was an old man in his 70s. He was an old man in his 70s who nursed the grudge, who nursed the grudge against British authority, against British authority, against British authority from very long time, from very long time. His zamindari estate, his zamindari estate was confiscated by the application of sunset clause, application of sunset clause. Then Jhansi, you right. So the entire story that I told you, that hasn't to be written, but then few things we can mention about her. So mention in Jhansi, you write a little bit of background of Rani Lakshmi Bai. So Rani Lakshmi Bai was originally known as Manikarnika. Was originally known as Manikarnika. So just listen one thing. Someone has, Hema Sudhir has mentioned annexation of Nagpur in 1853, Jhansi in 1854. I know this thing. This is what is written in Spectrum, which is not right. What you have written, that is right. You open your pages and it is what is written in Spectrum. So that's why I am here. Then that what is not right in Spectrum, what you are writing, that is according to NCRTs. And what is you are writing and what is there in the NCRT, that is the version of the UPSC. So go ahead with it. Take it? Don't worry. So mention further what you have written. Rani Lakshmi Bai was originally known as Manikarnika. She was born in a Marathi Brahmin family. She was born in a Marathi Brahmin family at Kasi. At Kasi. Full stop. Her father was a reputed officer in the court of last Peshwa, Bajirao II. She was fully trained in martial arts. Full stop. Then mention. She got married to Raja Gangadhar Rao Nevalkar. Raja Gangadhar Rao Nevalkar of Jhansi. Nevalkar of Jhansi. Then mention. Raja gave her the title of Rani Lakshmi Bai. Raja gave her the title of Rani Lakshmi Bai. Then you write. When Rani's newborn did not survived, when Rani's newborn did not survived, comma, they adopted a son from extended family. They adopted a son from extended family. Full stop. After the death of Raja, British did not recognized. After the death of Raja, British did not recognized the adopted son, and Jhansi was annexed. Jhansi was annexed with the application of Jhansi was annexed with the application of doctrine of lapse. Application of doctrine of lapse. Full stop. Rani gave a battle cry. Rani gave a battle cry. So you write the same slogan which is given in Hindi. ठीक है? मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी. There is no need of translation. मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी. Then mention. She fought bravely. She fought bravely. And got martyred during the combat. Got martyred during the combat. Then, after her death, or after suppression of revolt, after suppression of revolt, General Hugh Rose, paid homage to Rani. Paid homage to Rani. And then you write his words. So in quote unquote you write, the Indian mutiny has produced but one man. The Indian mutiny has produced but one man. And that man is a woman. That man is a woman. Right? So this is what is about the prominent leaders and their role over here. So a paragraph ek likh lo without any such heading, in which we'll talk about that how the other people got killed, and then we'll go into the analysis of the revolt and then significance. So likho that start with Nana Sahib and Begum Hazrat Mahal. Nana Sahib and Begum Hazrat Mahal fled to Nepal. Tantya Tope was captured and hanged. Tantya Tope was captured and hanged. Full stop. Maulvi Ahmadullah was killed by a pro-British Raja. Maulvi Ahmadullah was killed by a pro-British Raja at Shahjahanpur. Pro-British Raja at Shahjahanpur. Kunwar Singh also died in combat. Kunwar Singh also died in combat. Next, Bahadur Shah Zafar Bahadur Shah Zafar was tried by a court martial. Bahadur Shah Zafar was tried by a court martial and deported to Rangoon. And deported to Rangoon. Then, and one last line you write. By the mid 1858, revolt was thoroughly suppressed. Revolt was thoroughly suppressed. Then, so let's talk about reasons for its failure. Reasons for its failure. So why this revolt failed? So let's discuss one by one that why it failed. So understand, very first thing, let's start with the southern part itself, and when we mentioned that revolt engulfed major parts of the northern India, okay? That northern India, central India, western India, eastern India, but south was relatively unaffected. So we are using a word relatively unaffected. What does it mean? That revolt hasn't spread to South India? Did it spread? It spread. Okay? It spread. Revolt spread to the southern India, some places. But then, the moment it started in Telangana and in Tamil Nadu, it was immediately crushed. Okay? So it was immediately crushed, and then, okay, it was that British authority, they maintained their full control in that area in such a way that it must not, even the news of the suppression and news of the revolt must not reach to the other areas. So that is one thing. One or two places some sort of revolt was there. But then there were many reasons that why it did not spread to the southern India the way it was expected. The very first thing is many barriers then. And what are these barriers? So the very first barrier is the transport and the communication barrier. That still we are in 1856 and there is no such quicker mode of transportation. It's only in 1853 the first railway line was laid down, and it's just in the initial phase of the nascent phase of the development. Right? So just hardly in few areas there is a railway line, that is in Bombay. So still modern transport was not available, and if at all in some area it is there, it is only used by the British then. So it was better used by the British, not available for the Indians. So transport was one barrier. Another barrier was the communication. Why? So communication, telegraph services then, it was still in the nascent phase. It was just started by the British authority. Dalhousie was the creator of this telegraph services. So still in the nascent phase, and actually it was completely controlled by the British. So no Indian information can pass from the telegraph services. Then apart from it, okay, rest of the communication modes were also controlled by the British. So the news of the revolt was not able to reach to the southern India. Then another thing that we need to understand. When the revolt is happening, what is the immediate reason? Immediate reason is the rifle episode. And rifle was not introduced in all the cantonments, in all the units of the army immediately. Okay? Rifle was getting introduced February, May, suppose in February in Delhi. Okay? Then in March in some other area. It's all related to production. That jaise production ho raha hai rifle ka, it is introduced at some places. Then, so still, South India, that introduction of the rifles hasn't happened in this way. The way it started in the northern India. One more reason. You remember that we mentioned somewhere in the beginning that majority of the recruits in the British army were from which area? Bengal, Awadh and Northwest Frontier Province. So Bengal, Awadh and Northwest Frontier Province. So since the majority of the recruits are there from this area, they were the one who were most affected. So since the recruits were less from the southern India, they were less affected. So these are the reasons when we count. So that's why it did not spread to the southern India. One more thing can be counted. The revolt spread. It takes little bit of time to spread it to the other areas. When the revolt started, so it will take a little bit of time to spread to the other areas because India's length and breadth is that it's very high. Okay? So for example, ऊपर से लेके कश्मीर से लेके कन्याकुमारी तक, what is the length? How many kilometers? 6,000? Approx 6,000 we can say. 6,000 या कम है? 3,000? 3,000 and 6,000 is no जो भी हो. So 3,500 we can take into the consideration. So it takes a little bit of time to spread, but before it could spread to the southern India, it was already crushed by the British authority. तो जब तक पहुंचता तब तक ये revolt खत्म हो चुका था, ठीक है? So that is also one reason that why it did not spread to the southern India. Now we got the reasons that why it did not spread to the southern India. Now let's look at the other things which are happening over here. So first of all, that when we look at this revolt, so this revolt, did it had or is it reflecting any common ideology of the mutineers? Did they had any common ideology? No, none of them were having a common ideology. This was not based on ideology, but it was based on impromptu reasons. Then that impromptu reasons that जो effect हुआ उस वे में जिसने participate कर लिया. It was not based on any common ideology. And what ideology we are talking about? The ideology of the nationalism. There was no such spirit of the nationalism by this point of time. So everyone, now understand, everyone who were fighting in this war, they were fighting for their own self-interest. So for example, Nana Sahib fighting for his pension. Bahadur Shah wants to revive Mughal glory. Then Rani Lakshmi Bai, she wants Jhansi, wants back Jhansi. Then what about the other people? Begum Hazrat Mahal, she wants that Lucknow administration free from any interference of the British authority. Somebody wants their rent-free state, somebody wants their zamindari state. So everyone is fighting for their own self-interest. There was no such common concept of the nationalism at this point of time. So this was one such drawback of the revolt. Another thing, when it comes to the coordination, when it comes to the cooperation, it was a very primitive coordination and cooperation. So for example, that British will be having that they were getting information from the telegraph services and then many other transports, faster mode of the transport and communication. But on the other hand, communication among the Indians was primitive. I'll tell you one example. So example is, let's suppose that one village is going to, that one village which has already participated in the revolt, they want to pass this message to the another village that from tomorrow onwards, from this week onwards, you need to participate in this. So how the communication was done? So that British must not know. So dry rotis were distributed. Then, so dry rotis were distributed so that they will understand that they will participate in the revolt. Some area, in some of the areas, lotus flowers were exchanged then to participate in the revolt. So these are very primitive methods of communication. And moreover, some people will not understand कि dry roti का करे क्या, खाए या फेंके, ठीक है? So what to do with this dry roti? Or maybe thin crust praja can be made on it. So now, so this was not understood by many of the people, and obviously it is not a great mode of that communication. Then apart from it, the next one, when it comes to leadership, so leadership was also very ad hoc. Then, so leadership was also very ad hoc. In fact, there was no central leadership of the revolt. Then, no central leadership, and since there is no central leadership, so there is no such cooperation between the people. Then another thing, okay, the ideology that they will throw out the British from India with the violent means, but at the same point of time, those who are participating in the revolt, they are resisting the sophisticated weapons. You're getting it? Which is a sophisticated weapon? Enfield rifles. The revolt is resisting against the Enfield rifle, and which is most sophisticated. So that itself is a kind of a drawback. Then let's come to the other discussions also. Now this is an important discussion we need to make. And when it comes to the Indian ruling class, though only those people participated in the revolt who were disaffected, whose kind of rights were usurped by the British authority. Majority of the rulers and majority of the zamindars, they supported British authority. But then the most important discussion is the Indian intelligentsia class. Indian intelligentsia class did not supported the revolt. Why so? So इसको ध्यान से समझना. And एक और चीज है. Previously we said that Indian rulers, majority of Indian rulers and zamindars, they supported the British authority. Okay? But here we are not saying Indian intelligentsia did not supported the revolt. It does not mean that they are supporting the British authority. So they are just not supporting the revolt, but they are not supporting the British authority also. So the question can be asked कि चलो British को तो नहीं support किया, but why they are not supporting the the mutineers. So the Indian intelligentsia class was of the view that this revolt is backward looking, and revolt is backward looking, and moreover these people who are fighting, they are fighting for their own self interest, and this self interest will lead to the establishment of old monarchy, old feudal zamindari state. Okay, so it is not leading to a development that we want. And what they wanted, democracy, they wanted the government of the people, not government which is called as monarchy. So that's why they said that it is a backward looking revolt, it will not lead to any new change in the society. So that's why we will not support this revolt. There are some other reasons also, we'll write later on. Okay, we'll discuss later on. So start writing. Mention very first thing. So you write number 1. Revolt did not spread to southern India. Did not spread to southern India the way it was expected. Southern India the way it was expected. Then mention in this, before it could reach some of the parts of southern India, comma, it was thoroughly suppressed. Then number 2 you write, there was no central leadership. In the revolt. And it was organized in an ad hoc manner. And number 3, mutiny was based on flawed ideology of violence. Without having an organized cadre. To put an equal fight with highly organized British army. Then further you mention after this, next one, revolt was parochial in outlook. You can see the spelling. What do we mean by parochial? Any idea? So this is the word which I'm using for everyone is fighting for self-interest. So mention. Okay? So revolt was parochial in outlook as everyone was fighting for their own self-interest. Then mention after it, at this point of time, there was no such spirit of pan-India nationalism. Pan-India nationalism. Then Then next point. Majority of the ruling class and zamindars supported British authority. Zamindars supported British authority. Next. The intelligentsia class of India did not supported the revolt. The intelligentsia class of India did not supported the revolt. They considered revolt as backward looking. They considered revolt as backward looking. To re-establish old feudal order. Then mention, so iske beyond discussion nahi kiya hai. I think this was the last discussion. So now listen to the other things related to the revolt. Okay, so other things related to the revolt. So let's talk about the strength of the British. That is important. Though British were a handful, okay, as compared to the mutineers, their numbers were not great. But first of all, there is a one myth about the revolt, that did the entire Indian lot mutinied? No. Understand. Meaning that all the people who were in the army, not all of them mutinied. Okay? Still a good number of the people remained with the British authority. So, ये myth है, ठीक है, that which books have kind of omitted. So still British have the support of majority of a good number of the Indian sepoys. For example, we talked about the Sikh sepoys, that they were given the guns. So not just the Sikh, but from many other communities also, people, they sided with the British. So first of all, this is one thing. Then moreover, British were centrally organized. And moreover, there were many such incidents which happened in this revolt. For example, we mentioned Bibi Ghar massacre. So Bibi Ghar massacre further united the British in such a way which was unimaginable. Then that's one thing. So their central leadership was very strong. Then they were laced with the sophisticated weapons and technology. There is no denial in that. And the rifles which were introduced, now they are giving one advantage to the Britishers. Then apart from it, there are other things also, telegraph services. So the commander-in-chief of the British forces was regularly informed about the rebel activities through telegraph services. And these telegraph services were completely used by the British at this time. It was not at all available to Indians. It is very similar to the World War II scenario. Then World War II, have you heard about something related to the codes which actually resulted into the defeat of the Germany? Have you heard about the name of Alan Turing? No idea. You'll be reading about it. In fact, there was a movie on it, and Alan Turing, and then he was the one who was able to break the German codes then. And that's the reason that the entire submarine, and Pandubbi bolte ho na Hindi mein, okay? So entire submarines were targeted and they were gone. Okay? So it's very strong Germany was finally defeated, which created a havoc then at that point of time. And that's what is the reason that Hitler shot himself dead. Then, so that is the one thing. Here, telegraph services, similarly, it played a very vital role. Then, so it played a very vital role. All the rebel activities were informed to the commander-in-chief of the forces. Then, so counting these all reasons, British were victorious, and they were much more organized. So mention, you write. Then, not the entire Indian. Next. Not the entire Indian lot from the Indian sepoys, not the entire Indian lot from the sepoys participated in the mutiny. Participated in the mutiny. Next one. British were highly organized. British were highly organized, and and they were under the central command of, who is central command of Dalhousie. Central command of Dalhousie. Then next one. Then British Army was laced with LACED, laced with sophisticated weapons. Then last you write, the commander-in-chief of the British forces, was regularly informed about the rebel activities through telegraph services. Got it? So this is what is about the reasons of the failure. Okay? And though deliberately I omitted one dictation, that was that some of the part which I discussed in the southern India, that why it did not spread to the southern India. So if you have jotted down, it's good. If you haven't jotted down, so you see. And then moreover, it could be one question actually, full question, 10 marker question, that why the revolt of 1857 did not spread to the southern India. So आज इसी को assignment कर लो, ठीक है दीक्षा, and try इस वे में आंसर लिख लोगे वो कंफर्म हो जाएगा, ठीक है, that why it did not spread to the southern India. At least you will be having it in the writing. So, and you can add some more points if you find. Then let's come to the significance of the revolt. So the last topic is significance of the revolt. So what's the schedule of this week? Do I have classes whole week? अच्छा चलो बोर हो जाओगे तब तो तुम लोग. No, I think that sir must not be there, and I think polity चल रहा है ना साथ में. So sir must be on leave. That's why it might be that more number of the classes. So we have classes till Sunday or Saturday? Sunday तक है? Saturday तक? Sunday को class है. तो just give me 1 minute. What's the day today? Tuesday na? So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Sunday. So 4 classes. Chalo, let's see. So good enough topics we can cover, and I think your mini test also must be available. That so दे लो, इसको एक बार revise करके mini test दे लो, ठीक है? दीक्षा, where would be the center of the mini test? Online. Rajendra Place. ORN ना? Jet Popular के सामने वाला, उसके पीछे वाले साइड वाला. Okay. Okay. So you guys know na test center. If you don't know, so we'll give you the address. ठीक है? टेस्ट सेंटर पे जाके और दे लो, मतलब किसी भी टाइम पे, whichever time you feel that you are comfortable. अब ऐसा नहीं हो कि विजन बंद होने वाला उस टाइम पे रात में जाके देना है. So दिन के टाइम पे, ठीक है? So you go and you give the test. एक बार रिवाइज कर लो. I think it is modern test ना? Modern ना? So it is modern one. So then revise all the things and then give the test. It will be highly helpful. अगर टेस्ट नहीं दे रहे तो हो सकता है रिवीजन अच्छे से नहीं हो पाएगा. So you just revise and then go and give the test. ठीक है? So and those who are not confirmed, you can take the address from us then, where the test is conducted. एक बार देख लोगे तो फिर then it will be easier. So let's come to the significance of the revolt. So significance of the revolt, there are few things which is to be noted down. Now understand, It is one thing was very much clear in the beginning, that if the mutineers would have been in a, they would have operated in an organized fashion, so then the result would have been otherwise. And one more thing which was very, which can be deduced from it, that British are not invincible. In fact, they were very much fearful in the beginning. They were scared in the beginning. Then, so from some areas, their rule, their administration was completely lost. Then, so one thing can be noted, that British are not invincible. If we operate in an organized manner, they can be defeated. That is number one. Number two, that though majority of the class and good number of the people are not supporting, but not supporting, but it never resulted into a communal kind of situation where polarization is there in the society. In fact, those who participated, there was complete cooperation between the Hindus and Muslims. So this revolt did not did not classify the mutineers on the basis of the Hindus and Muslims. All of them were operating as a one, and there was a complete cooperation between the Hindus and Muslims. Then, the most important contribution of this revolt is said that it implanted the seed of the nationalism. Before the revolt, there was no such spirit of the nationalism, but now they felt that this common enemy, okay? So this common enemy united the people of India, and then it planted a seed of nationalism. And this seed of nationalism, we are saying seed, we are not saying the tree, okay? So this seed is further going to grow in the upcoming 20-30 years, and that will lead to the organized freedom struggle under the guidance of the Indian National Congress. So mention, ek likho. So very first thing, point wise likho, that number one, it broke the myth that British are invincible. It broke the myth that British are invincible. Invincible. Then mention, if revolt would have been organized in a better manner, British would have lost beyond redemption. British would have lost beyond redemption. Then next one you write, there was no instance of communal tension. There was no instance of communal tension during the course of revolt. In fact, there was complete cooperation. In fact, there was complete cooperation between Hindus and Muslims. Between Hindus and Muslims at all the levels. Hindus and Muslims at all the levels. Next one. Even in its failure, it served the great purpose. It served the great purpose by implanting the seed of nationalism. Even in its failure, it served the great purpose by implanting the seed of nationalism, which was to grow in the upcoming decades. In the upcoming decades. It created the foundation of Indian nationalism. It created the foundation of Indian nationalism. Indian nationalism. And then fourth one, okay, so understand what was the last significance of this, not in a positive negative manner, but this is just a change which is going to happen. And what is the change? Transfer of power. Okay, so transfer of power from British East India Company to the British Crown. Okay, so mention the revolt led to complete transfer of power from British East India Company to the British Crown, which proclaimed that British will stop the policy of annexation in India. Will stop the policy of annexation in India. Then, so from this perspective, it was important. Then 1857 revolt is over. So we'll see that why it is important that policy of annexation will stop. And in fact, from here onwards, there would be more incorporation of Indians into the administration. So we'll see in the next part. So now, as we mentioned in the very first class, that this is the 45% of the syllabus. It is complete. Next 10% is socio-religious reform. So tomorrow's class will start with the socio-religious reform. Understand that in socio-religious reform, we'll go by the religion. So first we'll start the reforms in the Hinduism, then Islam, then Sikhism, and then Parsi religion. Moreover, before starting the topic, we will talk about the two trends. Then one is the reform movement, revivalist movement, and reforms of 19th century and 20th century. So we will do some sort of comparison between the two, and then we'll further move ahead. Okay? Chalo, so thank you.